we're on. It is Friday. Welcome to the Friday Grief Chat with Jill and Deb. We're glad to have you. Deb is waving. If you're listening to this afterward on podcast, thank you for listening. If you find us on any podcast platforms or on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. We'd love to have that. I'm surprised I remember to say that.
Oh, you are. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I was in the car a lot yesterday listening to podcasts.
That's why you can say those things.
Remember that. Quickly. Yes. How were things in the land of snow and ice, or whatever the weather is right now?
It's windy gusts. I debated whether to put the garbage out a couple nights ago because it's been so windy. It's in the 40s, I think, but by Sunday it's supposed to be in the 70s.
Nice. You're going to join us. We're all going to be in 70s.
I know. Did your car thing say 45 degrees today?
Yes,
for you?
Indeed.
That's cold
that was yesterday. Yeah, we were in the low 40s, and the upper 40s all day yesterday, and rainy, driving rain. But we're California. We need the rain, folks.
You really
know
do.
It causes floods. We know it causes things to grow. We need the rain. We're really behind again. Our mountains are snowed in. Our staff who live in the mountains can't get out. So we're finally getting some precipitation, and we've got more coming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So even though it causes complications, we are also extremely grateful.
Wow. Yeah. It's the same over here in the Midwest. While we grow tons of corn and soybeans, that's the majority of most crops, although there are more and more little farms growing and bringing them to market, or you can go and pick up a basket of whatever. I love seeing on Facebook, they're called Misfits. And Misfits is a food thing you sign up for, and each week you get a basket of misshapen veggies, fruits, things that, the printing was wrong or something. I mean, it's all really good food. Most of it is organic, and it's pretty cool.
We have that here too, because the markets want perfect, exactly shaped fruit, and that's not how nature makes food.
No.
Yeah.
We're all in the island of misfits.
That's right.
Jill and I, when we were talking beforehand to our listening audience, we were talking by ourselves, and we said we were going to bring up about, the difficulty either side and beyond what people are saying about our country, what our own personal opinions, our own griefs about change. And I, as a minister, have decided to focus on what can we do? What can we do for ourselves to stay centered in the midst of change? Besides, I don't think that's all you need to do. Some people say it's all going to be okay and all this stuff, and it doesn't feel okay. So I need to trust how things are going. But there's other people that, truly believe whatever they believe. I want to focus on what are some things that we can do for ourselves to feel grounded, to feel like we're not going to be swept off our feet and pushed down every day.
To know that we can get through this and get through as well the other things that are happening in real time in real lives that are co-occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you have a loss of a loved one and then something else terrible happens. How do you do co-occurring shifts, change, loss?
Mm-hmm.
How do you surf all the waves that are occurring? Right?
Jill and I have used this metaphor before. where when you go water skiing, it is best not to water ski right behind the boat, because right behind the boat going in front of you, it makes the water choppy. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to get over a hump of a wave as you go to either the left or the right. And so once you uh, not be afraid, find somehow to like, I'm just going to get through it. I don't, whatever I feel. And, or you go, it's going to be okay right on the other side of this wave. And you, with your skis, you go over to the left or the right. Those waters are easier to navigate, to do tricks, to do whatever, you know, and it's it's like that in life. Somehow you have to take yourself right out of behind the boat that is making the waves. So that might mean, and ride the first wave to get to the other side, maybe by number one, a little less news. And if you're going to do a little less news, or you don't even want to do a little less, can you go to someplace that you feel is reputable, and fact check. Just fact check. People do this all the time before you jump in right behind the boat to post what somebody else posts or post what someone else is saying when it's not true. And so I think fact checking. Another thing I think is important is taking a deep breath before you do anything. You're going to have a reaction. Just know you're going to have a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
How can you breathe before you react? And another thing is your vibe, your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. So, can you talk to others that can affirm your reality? Because not everybody's going to affirm your reality.
Not everybody sees your reality.
Not everybody
And
sees your reality.
and like other losses, other people have not experienced it in the way that you are.
That's right. Just like
Right.
loss.
And it's in a small minuscule part of it, my kids are buying a new house right now and they're looking at interest rates and they know what they are and they're prepared for them, but oh my gosh, how does anyone get through with 7%? It's going to get bought down to 4%. And I have to stop myself because I remember 13%, 21%. And we bought a house in that market. Student loans at one point were above 14%. And that is the reality that used to be. The meta message is we've been through big changes before.
Mm-hmm.
We've been through awful before, right? None of us who are alive right now, for the most part, remember Pearl Harbor in real time. But we had loved ones who did, and we have heard their firsthand experiences of living through that time period. We've had other times of upheaval,
Mm-hmm.
and our people got through them, and other people got through them, and we can get through things. We can find the glimmers to get through.
That's right. Um, when a friend of mine who's a pastor of I think a Lutheran church or something, he's on now and he goes for Lent, 40 days of gratitude. And I
Mhm.
remember when I had a huge loss in our family, an estrangement, that one of the things that got me through some of the hard parts. And sometimes when I repeated it enough, I turned a corner, maybe just for that day, but it felt like I turned a corner. I freer to breathe.
Right.
Ano- Along with this, with the gratitude, I think about, like Jill, our forefathers and foremothers, that
I've
how
been there and done that.
grateful, how grateful I am where I
Mhm.
lived to see a whole bunch of what I considered positive changes in the world that I could align my reality with. I mean,
Mhm.
while we have had wars, we have not had world wars in my lifetime. In my lifetime, women had discovered and created and worked hard for a bunch of freedoms. And I got to see those. I got to see autonomy of your body for the most part, of a woman's body. These are things I'm grateful for. I'm thankful for uh, less deaths than when my grandmother was alive in back alley abortions. I'm thankful for the equality I feel with my partner, right?
Mhm.
I feel grateful that I get to see people that I love, no matter what pronoun they use, what gender, and people of same sex that love each other and can not get kicked out of a uh, hospital room, where in the beginning of my life that happened. And during the AIDS epidemic that happened, you couldn't be with your loved one, you didn't have any rights. And now it
In
feels
my
like
life, that happened.
that, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I'm grateful that I got to see those things. I may have to work back up to those things and those
Mhm.
joys. I don't know. Um, I'm not in charge. That's what I tell people. I'm not in charge, but I am in charge of reframing and keeping myself safe, keeping my reality going, and supporting others that feel like that
Absolutely.
and
And
attend years.
we can find part of what we talk about on this show is the need to not only find the grace, which is finding the gratitude, but finding the humor to be able to get through it.
Hmm.
Even in the tiny moments. I listened to Justin Trudeau yesterday, and someone said, okay, so this was happening, and now this is supposed to be happening, and now this has changed. And someone else said, this is psychodrama. What do you call it? And he said, Thursday. And I just, that was my response. I laughed out loud because I needed
Right.
that laugh, right? And
Exactly.
I can go home and laugh at the doodlebugs playing or find some joy in my new tomato plants that I'm so proud of. I found a San Marzano tomato plant, at organic
Wow.
tomato plant, and it's in my garden now, and I'm very excited about that. But I gave one to my next door neighbor, my BFF, and I sent her a note and said, now, since this is an Italian special Italian tomato, it is going to require Italian sparkling water
Ha!
and sprinkles from Italian volcanic crystals that will need to be imported to make it feel at home in your yard.
That's great.
Because you can have some humor in the midst of all this.
You
I've
can.
also had people reach out to me this week, and I've heard some really terrible news for a dear friend of mine, and I know they're coping with it to the best of their ability, but still using all of their skills to stay centered, to wait
Hmm.
for more news, to figure out what's happening. And we need to be able to do that for ourselves individually, within our circles, and then collectively, right?
Just like this is a much used metaphor. You do have to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you take care of others. So make sure you're looking for places to laugh. This week, I'm really enjoying parrot videos and reels where the parrots are going, Alexa, Alexa, and Alexa keeps turning on, or just some of the other crazy things that parrots are saying. I, it's this week's thing. Last week it might have been singing chickens. I mean, I just, I pick an animal, and if they can talk, I'm in heaven.
I'm
So,
happy with the dog, the amazing dog who uses his buttons, and
oh yes, and
and
cats too.
watching him figure out that he's a dog, not a people, and wanting to know
Yes,
why he's not a people, and then just
yes.
being happy to go for a walk. And most recently, it was no walk time is tomorrow, and no walk now. No walk time is tomorrow. Please. Okay,
Oh
I'm
my
getting more sleep.
gosh. I'd be like, I would never leave my house.
Right, right.
I
That would
know.
be enough for me. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
so Jill and I are really advocating for taking care of yourself. And if you're hanging
And
out by
finding your
yourself,
people. Yeah.
yes, finding your people. If you are hanging out and with people or yourself, Jill and I want to talk about some books that have meant a lot to us over the years, and
Yes.
especially when dealing with loss and grief. And there's many kind of losses, therefore there's many types of grief. And Jill, what's one of your favorites?
You know, I was doing a speaking engagement yesterday for a senior community, and was talking about, Steve Leader's books, which are now perennial favorites of mine. And I was realizing just how much I like to sit inside anticipatory grief and preparing people for loss,
Mm-hmm.
because that gives everyone that space to say the things instead of saying the things afterwards when the person is no longer here. And to me, that goes right to Randy Pau's The Last Lecture. That one speaks miles to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was much younger, it was Jonathan Livingston Seagull,
Oh yes.
right? Those
Yeah.
that series, and also the other part of his series that he had, um,
Illusions. Uh,
Illusions. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
because the person in the book
Hmm.
dies a horrible, violent death, but then they talk together about that,
Right.
and it's I the more it's just like riding that first wave outside the boat. You have to get over the fear of talking about death. If you talk about death, it won't happen,
Right.
meaning it will. It happens to everybody.
Mhm.
However, it's it's the more you can think about it, as in one of my favorite gurus, think of two things: death and God, and you will live your life perfectly, you know.
Mhm.
And it's just that's sort of humorous to me, right?
Right.
Because I'm also thinking, hmm, how do you make that, fluff? And how do you do this? I'm thinking food, I'm not just thinking about death and God during the day. I'm thinking about many things. And, but
I
it just
also like
makes
the
serious.
fall of Freddie the Leaf because that's also anticipatory grief.
Yes, that's a
And,
good one.
Leo Buscaglia, you can't go wrong because, first of all, he's an LCSW, so he's in my little crew, and there are not many of us. But
Yes,
secondly, it speaks so eloquently to the preparation and to addressing fear and fear of dying.
right.
And it speaks to adults as well as children. And again, it's a net anticipatory piece because that's largely where I live because of the work that I do now.
The When I was divorced,
Hmm.
um, I found a book, so this was in the late 80s, called How to Survive the Loss of a Love.
Oh yeah,
And
it's
it
on my
had,
bookshelf.
yeah, yeah. And I
Mhm.
just love that. And I've bought it a few times and since given it away. I want to talk about somebody else who has been on our program,
Yes,
and Alan Klein.
absolutely. I talked about him yesterday. Hmm.
Oh, that's so great. He wrote a book, and I think it came out in 98. Uh that's when I first met Alan. It was, yeah, 1998. Um my mom had died, and I went later on into a humor conference many months after mom had died. And I met Alan, and he had what's called the courage to laugh.
It's a
And
great book.
it is, it talks about when he was married to his wife. She had some cancer, and she was in the hospice room. Back then, it was in a hospital, I believe. And they he put up for her a male nude calendar. And she said, "Oh, you better cover something up." So from one of the plants, he tacked on a leaf. And then they
Mm.
watched every day how the leaf curled up and showed more and more of what they originally wanted to cover up. And that just little grin every day, like I said, my 1000 Red Nose projects, changing, giving peace to people one ha at a time, because all you need is it, and you never know when it's going to come up, but planning ahead, which is, I've always learned, is plan spontaneity. You
Yes,
carry something around with you. I carry red noses, I carry silly stuff. It changes the mood and the vibe, right? Whatever it is. Um, when it's sort of like saying, here's all the bad news, Mrs. So and so, but here's the good news. So it's like changing things really fast. And it gives people a chance to breathe. So the courage to laugh is humor, hope, and healing in the face of death and dying. Because how many people here still know that when they go to a funeral, hush, stop laughing. This is serious. Even in my job as a nurse, you need to
yeah.
be more serious, you
That was
know?
one of the things brought up in my lecture yesterday. Was there have been so many people now who've gone to just not having a service, not having a
Right,
gathering, not having a memorial, and what a loss that is. And we talked about that and the fact that if you have a loved one who tells you you don't do it, don't spend the money, I don't, no one's going to come, blah blah blah. As soon as they're dead, they don't get a vote. You get to do whatever you want because you need that moment to
right,
have the
right.
spontaneity, to have the share, to have the connection.
Hmm. I
Hmm.
went to hospice. It was only through grace I found out he was in hospice. And I went this past Monday. And, I said, "Oh, remember when you introduced me to so and so?" And he goes, "Oh, yes." He had very little energy to say more than that. But I said, "Oh my God, I had the hardest time with that." And he just nodded and grinned because, I got over it 6 months later, and that person became very dear friends with me.
Right.
So, and then he died the next 2 days later. And, you
I
know,
got there.
I feel like we left the way we met, which was with a smile and reverence. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember what before I left the room, I kissed him on the forehead. I didn't even say goodbye. And I was perfectly fine not going there again, knowing he
Mm-hmm.
would die soon. Um, I want to bring up another book, someone we had on our program, and it's called Love's Last Act: Planning a Peaceful Death with No Regrets. And this, while it deals a little bit with loss, it's more like people get yourself together, make plans for your death. I'm meeting with a funeral home. Daryl's not with me uh next week. He's still out of town, but I have I'm going to be doing some funeral planning and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and burial planning and things like that.
It's important to get that done.
It is to make sure that, everything is what you need. And this is by Deborah Price. So both these books you can find on Amazon. If you're not doing Amazon, try
Barnes and
Thrift,
Noble will also order.
Barnes and
Hmm.
Noble, if whatever.
Or your local independent bookseller will order them in.
Yes, they will. They will.
Hmm.
So I just think it's the spectrum of grief. Or you can come to a grief conference where
In June,
in June.
the
Yay.
International Death, Grief, and Bereavement Conference is this June. It's the very first week of June, always. It's at La
Mhm.
Crosse, Wisconsin, at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, which is a peaceful campus. The kids are off at summer break, so the conference has the space to roam around. It's not huge, and
Right.
it's more intimate, and you can connect with some of the major thought people in grief and loss, as well as people who do grief and loss, as well as grievers. And it's just a really special place to be.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's my favorite conference. I know it's one of Deb's, along with the humor
Humor
conference.
conference.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's just so many people from so many walks of life with so many different letters behind their names who are just there to learn to do things differently, better, in a way that they hadn't thought. Think outside the box,
Mm-hmm.
connect, let your hair down, eat good ice cream. Go out for a drink or out for a soda at the soda fountain in an adorable little town.
It is. It's and where Jill and I usually stay, you walk out the other side of the building and there is the river.
The
And
Mississippi
it's
River is literally at the doorstep.
yeah, and it is just really worth it. And like Jill said, even if you're going not to get CEs, you don't want to teach this stuff, but you just want to feel. You want to be able to feel if you're feeling numb from another death that has happened. And there are memorials, there are meditations, and Andrew Vitali,
Hmm.
yeah, he leads meditation every year. Um,
There's actually also a new timers gathering that the old
yes.
timers go to, which is a picnic this year. And there are very few conferences where the first time you attend, you're not being fish out of water. You're being welcomed and fed
Mhm, mhm.
and given the lay of the land and made to feel part of things.
Right.
It's a
Right.
really cool part of it. And if you're on the broker side of things, you can actually arrange to stay in a student dorm room instead of
Yes.
a hotel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to this conference. We love it. I look forward to it every year. I'm
Right.
working on my Amtrak tickets because as much as I do love getting to La Crosse, I'm just not part of flying right now. That's my
Mhm.
loss right now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my.
So
Well,
next week, Deb will be here solo. I will be in beautiful Monterey, California, out on the water, speaking to the California State Judges Conference. So I'll be connecting with the judiciary and all the losses they face, and how
right.
to help them find that breathing space and and the ways to be grateful while they're hearing, really dreadful stuff from the bench.
They, it's not a piece of cake when you're a
No.
judge. And it's not just, well, whatever I think. I, I think about all the sexual abuse stories they have to
Mhm.
listen to and preside over and keep their cookies.
All the fighting families, all the murder cases, they have the divorces. There's not a people don't go to court because they're happy with life.
Exactly. Very
And,
well
and
said.
and the judge is the one who has to say stop it. And so I look forward to this conference. It's the second time I've attended and spoken, but they are people who really need nurturing that we rarely think about needing nurturing. We talk about
Mhm.
first responders and nurses and doctors and last responders, and we don't usually talk about the people who have to make decisions where sometimes they have to be Solomon and there isn't a good decision.
Right, right.
And so I will be doing that, and Deb will be holding down the fort and talking about.
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, it'll be a surprise.
It'll be a surprise. Well, thank you all for being here today and joining us later as you listen to this on our podcast. And I'll
And
see you
joining
all.
us in Wisconsin,
Yes. Oh, that would be great.
right?
Yeah.
We can have a gathering of our own. All right, everybody. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Deb, thank you for holding it down.
All righty. Bye
Have a
bye,
good weekend,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.